Well, praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. Glad to see you again on this Wednesday. Ah, bless the name of the Lord, for he is good and his mercy endureth forever. Going to continue our conversation about personal growth and spiritual growth. I'm going to wrap this conversation up here shortly, but I wanted to ask you a question as it relates to personal growth and spiritual growth. And I think I touched on this a little bit. I'm just going to attack it from a different way. And so, as I as I approach this conversation, I want to ask you this question: Are you satisfied? And what will it take you to grow? You got to understand that in many situations, we've come to realize that we live. You can get comfortable, and I can draw this all out, but but when it comes to growth and growing and living, you can get comfortable where you are, and there is a point that everyone feels that, okay, at this level, I'm as influential, I'm as responsible, I'm as committed, I'm giving, I'm doing what I can do, that in my own estimation is at the peak of my potential. And but that's not the case for most people. In fact, most people are comfortable when it comes to personally growing. After completing school, or either high school or college, they will not pick up another book. Will not pick up another book to read it that will cause them to grow, expand their knowledge on a topic. And this is I started to pull up the stats, but you can Google it. It's a very high number of that represents those that I was required to read when I was in school. Now that I'm from out of school, I don't need to read, and and not everyone tends to do things that's going to cause them to grow and think differently, because Albert Einstein says that you cannot solve a problem at the same level it was created, at the same level of thinking, at the same level of emotional state. You can't solve a problem at the same level that it was created on, and that is the reason why you generally have to go to someone else to get perspective, to get an answer to your problems. Or you can say, okay, I'm going to tackle this myself, and I'm going to elevate my thinking about this and get more knowledge about this, and so I can resolve the problem at a higher level. In the same respects, we will watch countless hours of television. We'll go to movies, and we'll be on our smartphones, but we won't read a book or attend a seminar that will sometimes challenge us to either accept life or to change. And 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 generally something actually has to happen in order for people to change. People don't naturally are people are resistant of change, and just from a physics standpoint, they said, energy travels at the or energy travels at the point of least resistance. So people are oriented in the same like manner. What allows me to get through life without having to extend or expend a significant amount of energy? And so whatever you become comfortable with, you will accept. I heard a story that I wanted to bring into this conversation. It's about a young man who went from living in Section 8 housing to earning $12 million in his e-commerce over a period of 5 years. And that was from 2017 to 2020, 22 here, and he had generated this type of income, but there was a particular catalyst that caused him to do that. And what caused him to do that was I'm just giving you a short story of it. His name is Keenan Williams. I remember his last name because it's a Williams. For those who know it, you know why. But nevertheless, Keenan Williams he got a call while he was working at a Skechers shoe store, and that stated that his mother had a stroke. And he went to his boss and said, I need to go to the hospital because my mother's had a stroke and getting being told to, come ASAP. And his boss didn't look up from what his keyboard, from what he was doing. He just kept his head down and says, "This is a very busy day. You need to go out on the floor and sell some shoes." And Keenan said, "I didn't think he was going to say what he said, but he said it. And when he did, I started to show him where I was from, and I instead decided to show him where I was going." And so he took off his company shirt, put it on the counter, and left and said, "I got to go take care of my mother." And so, and essentially said, "I will not be back here again. I made a decision that I'm not going to allow someone else to dictate to me, especially when something that's, an emergency that happens in your life." And I will, I'll let you pull up the video on his life, but he went on to start an e-commerce business, failed at it 3 times, and almost to a point that he didn't think it was going to work. Had some. It's funny about doing things on your own that people don't understand is, and we not only do we don't understand this, we resist the road that it takes to become successful when you're trying to be an entrepreneur, and that road is dealing with failure. And how you deal with failure is going to determine whether or not you're going to succeed or not. And if someone don't tell you that you might experience failure in the process of becoming successful, someone doesn't coach you through that, you're going to think that your failure is fatal, and you're not going to get up and try again, and just figure and realize that the methodology, the mindset, the attitude, the psychology, whatever it takes for you to become successful, required that failure, because you're going to learn something, and in learning something, you're going to be able to do better. And so, as a result, he, after experiencing failure, he eventually has success, and enormous success, and to the point now he's training other people, coaching other people on how to be successful in their e-commerce business, and that's amazing, because he communicated a reality about people who are successful. And he said he saw a stat that showed that 17 millionaires are being created every minute. Wrap your head around that. Wrap your head around that. It says 17 millionaires are being created every minute. And I speak about this because generally, I speak about money in this regard, because when you think about personal growth, majority of the time it's based on your financial situation. It's based on in strengthening your financial capabilities, your fulfilling your financial potential, and certain catalysts, come alongside to motivate you in that area. You may have an interest in it, but certain things happen in your life that pushes you in that direction. Says, okay, either I'm going to do this or I'm going to die. But I'm not going to stay in the same situation again. But I talk about this because we don't realize how much we have been indoctrinated to think that a good paying job is all that you should aspire to have. And in worst case, they create systems. They created a system to help you to placate you to accepting less than a good paying job. During the pandemic here, churches were required to close while ABC stores were allowed to be open. And so they said, let's give the people a way to anesthetize, to dull their senses to the trauma of being at home, or losing their job, or not having any money. But let's make sure that the alcohol and liquor stores are open in order to help them to cope with the situation. But the churches, for those individuals who run to God for their source, their peace, their comfort, we're going to close that down, because in truth, the church could and should teach you how to overcome the situation, and to deal with and begin to look within, as opposed to looking to other people to come alongside to take care of you. And so that brings me to my next question. Are you living your best potential, or are you accepting whatever happens because you are taught whatever will be will be? You know, if some people, and sadly a number of us have been influenced to think whatever be will be. You don't got to push hard at it. Man. Why you got to go hard at it? Why you got to put that much focus to it? Why do that? To have a level of success in life, or just to fulfill your potential, requires you to not accept the norm, not accept the status quo. It requires you to push against what actually is some type of, it's seemingly it's communicated as an opinion. It is communicated in conversations, but it's like this unseen force that tries to keep you down, and you have to push against it until you break through to get to a place where you would say, you know what, I am going to have the quality of life and lifestyle that I choose to have. Well, and for many people, sometimes something has to happen or be a catalyst or what we call a heightened emotional experience before they're motivated to change or to grow. And for Keenan, it was the situation with his mother. But it can be a number of things. For some, it's a loss of a job or the loss of a loved one. For others, it's a failure of a relationship, and even others, it's a health challenge. Anything that happens that causes you to reevaluate your current situation, your current way of living, what you come to accept as the norm, and 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 begin to reconsider, says, okay, what do I need to do to change this, so that I don't ever have to go through this again. When you think about it, when you think about it, the loss of a job can put you in a place where you you have to do something different. And it's that motivation that'll cause you to look outside of the norm, the narrative that says, okay, it's your income potential is through a job. In this present day and in this particular season, as I said, there is 17 millionaires being created every minute. So these individuals has figured out that there's opportunities that are available to us right now. That if you were to give yourself a chance, to find someone who's doing something that you're interested in and allow them to coach you, you could circumvent a lot of the headaches and pitfalls that generally happens to most people when they try to do something different. So when you think about that, you also have to ask yourself, are you hungry? Or are you hungry? Or do you want more? You know, Sometimes there's a negative aspects that tries to be a catalyst to cause you to change, and but there's the positive side of it. Is says, are you hungry? Do you want more? Do you want more than just financial security? And believe it or not, there is a mantra that has this thing that in order for you to have a good life, you want financial security. You need to go to the job to get the job. You need to go to college to get to college. You need to have good grades in high school. And there's this trek that was laid out for you. And the purpose for that, and people don't realize this, that for some, it's not for every situation, but for some, if you remember the movie The Matrix, and the girl called Neo a copperhead, that you are a source of power in the system for the powers that be to have the quality of life that they have. And we don't realize when you think about it that the 2%, I'm going to say the 2%ers, but the 1%ers own like more than 80% of all of the assets in the world. Think about that. So if they own all of the assets, that means we that work and create a lifestyle for ourselves do so for our own benefit, but we are giving peanuts by comparison to what the 1%ers have. Next question: do you want peace or, of eternal security? You know, some people need to assess that situation. The circumstances may happen. They're like, okay, I'm going to do something different because you may experience a loss of a loved one. You may experience, you know, that's generally the catalyst that makes people want to consider whether or not they have security to a point that, okay, when is my time to leave this earth? That I have made preparations eternally for my soul. And truth be told, once you come to a real reality about this, a lot of the other anxieties in your life will fall away. You will not fear. You should not fear death. You know, once you get to a place that you got your soul secure. If God is, well, I don't want to go down that path too far, but nevertheless, from a spiritual growth, when you will consider the fact that at one point you may not know God, at one point you didn't know God, for most people who are looking at this video, that now that you have a peace with God, you have this eternal security, you're good. You're good. As far you're like, now I can grow in that, but still I'm good. I'm satisfied. Do you want better relationships? If you're going to grow personally or spiritually, you got to ask yourself, do you want better relationships? And if your relationship isn't good, you have to reconsider what you know and what you practice about being in a relationship. Because maybe you're doing things by the way what you've been exposed to that is inconsistent with the quality of relationship that you want. And if you want to have better, you got to think better, do better, so that you can experience this better relationship. Same thing applies to a better health. If you want better health, you got to do something different. The standard American diet is killing you. It tastes good, you know. It may taste good, but it's killing you because they're designed to keep you addicted to the things that taste good, and so we satisfy ourselves with that type of part of our life, you know, and it ruins our health. And so until you decide you really want a better health, till you decide, cut yourself off from any other course of action. When you decide you want better health, you're going to do some certain things, and just take baby steps. I can't tell you. I was told, I was encouraged and said one of the best books out there is actually Dr. Phil's book, The Ultimate Weight Loss Guide, or something like that, I think it's called. It says that's one of the best books because he doesn't try to get you back to your teenage size. He says, let's be realistic about the shape and size that you can get to, but let's make sure that you begin to create a plan that's going to allow you to eat and enjoy life, but you know, be the best version of yourself, from a health perspective. As we transition and have this conversation around spiritual growth, I thought about this. William McDowell has sings some powerful words in a song on one of his worship sets. I thought the name of it I would remember it. Withholding Nothing is the worship set, and I don't think this is necessarily on his CD. It could be, but it is on his worship that is on YouTube, and I'm blessed by it. You know, it's I think it's like 4 or 5 years old, but powerful message. And the words of the song that really ministers towards your spiritual growth. It says, "The change I want to see must first begin in me." The worshiper is communicating to the Lord that I want to change in order to be used by you, but the change I want to see must first begin in me. And this requires surrender. This requires you to say, okay, the way I'm doing things, the way I'm considering, the way I understand things needs to change. And you can endeavor to create this change through your study of the word and allowing the word to change you. But the real source of that change is going to happen in you. And so you have to implore the Lord's favor and grace in order to get you there. One of the other parts of the song in this little medley, it says, if they're looking for you, Jesus, let them find you in me. He says, if they're looking for you, let them find you in me. You know, this is consistent with what we read in Galatians when Paul was dealing with the Galatian church and he was talking about how they were falling away from the truths of the gospel that he had communicated to them. In the fourth chapter, in the 19th verse, he says, "My little children, in whom I travail and birth again until Christ be formed in you." The goal of your spiritual growth throughout your life is that Christ is going to be formed in you. The nature of Christ, the character of Christ, the virtue of Christ, the submissiveness of Christ to surrender His will to the Father's will. So that when people look at you, they'll see the character and nature of Christ, and they have an understanding of what it means to be a Christian. Another verse that just resonates. He says, "I want to go deeper. I want to go further. I want to go higher than I'd ever been." You know, and this, I promise you, as a worshiper, it is birthed out of you when you are drawing near to God. He's drawing, and there is something about the beauty of God, the presence of God, the glory of God by themselves are so attractive that you say whatever you experience at one season in your life, you'll come back to Him and says, "God, I want to go deeper in you. I want to go further in you. I want to go higher in you. I want to again have Christ's nature so formed in me, so complete in me that when they look at me, they see Jesus." So another verse that ministers, it says, "I'm not satisfied where I've been, although I cried out before, still I want more." People, I'm not satisfied. That's why I titled this, "Are You Satisfied?" Are you satisfied with just being where you are? You're gonna, you're going to reach a measure of success in every season of your life, every decade of your life. But in your spiritual growth, you should never be satisfied with what you have come to know about God, what you've experienced in God. You have to always keep this last thought in one of his lyrics in mind, because he ends the medley of songs by saying, "I'm running, I'm running, I'm running into your arms. I'm running, I'm running, I'm running to your arms." Because getting Jesus allows you to receive everything that is associated with Him, and sometimes and oftentimes, and I understand that you go to God for healing, you go to God for prosperity, you go to God for comfort, you go to God for all of revelation, you go to God for all these things, and you have to understand that you can fool yourself and you can fool people, but you can't fool God about your deepest motives for coming to Him. And at some point in your drawing nearer to Him, it has to come out of a place where you're just being genuine and it's about Him. And then God begins to expose, reveal to you the blessings that are associated, available for you, because your blessings may not mirror the same as others, but nevertheless. So I just want to point out that the closer you draw near to God, the more you desire to know Him. Your hunger for God is going to come out of your desire to know Him, your desire to know Him is going to draw you closer to Him, and the more you draw closer to Him, the more you want to know Him. And so you'll never get to a place where you're totally satisfied with your relationship with God. You're going to think about this. Moses began his walk by seeing this miracle of the burning bush. And then he went down into, he knew that he was deficient. In fact, he communicated that he was deficient. He was incapable. He was lacking the communication skills. He said, "I stutter." He said, and God said, "I already figured that out." Can you imagine God giving you a task and you trying to throw up to God why you can't do it? And God says, I've already figured that out. But anyway, but he goes from the burning bush. He goes down to Egypt. He do a series of miracles and deliver the children of Israel out of the hand of Egypt. They come through the Red Sea. They go into the wilderness. God gives them water out of a rock. He feeds them, sends them bread from manna from heaven. You know, he feeds them supernaturally, and with all that, he says, "I want to see your face. I want to know you more." There is this insatiable appetite that he had to know more about God. And I think, and I'm going to wrap this conversation up with something that Paul said in Colossians. In Colossians 1 and 9, Paul is writing to that particular church, and he opens his letter to the church with this prayer towards them. And this is the prayer that I desire for you as it relates to spiritual growth. And it says this: "For this reason, we also, since the day we heard it, do not cease to pray for you and ask that you may be filled with the knowledge of his will in all wisdom and spiritual understanding, that you may walk worthy of the Lord, fully pleasing him, being fruitful in every good work and increasing in the knowledge of God." Paul said, "This is our desire, that you gain spiritual wisdom and spiritual understanding that would give you understanding. It'll empower you. It'll give you direction on how to walk worthy of the Lord, being fully pleasing to him and being fruitful in every good work." Good God. As you increase in the knowledge of God. He goes on to say, "being strengthened with all might according to his glorious power, for all patience and long suffering with joy." You know, this is what spiritual growth, the fruit of spiritual growth, can do for you. It'll cause you to be strengthened to go through the failures, quote unquote failures, that you may experience, the persecution, the challenges, but you'll go through it with patience and with joy. You're like, okay, you'll accept that this is a part of the process. This is a part of the process. And lastly, the last verse says, "and giving thanks to the Father who has qualified us to be partakers of the inheritance of the saints in the light." You know, to be qualified to be partakers of the inheritance, brings about in itself a certain degree of confidence that you know that you will stand before God, not based on whether you get in or get out, but you stand before God from a standpoint of saying that the task that you gave me to do, the potential that you placed in me, I have exercised that task. I have expressed, I've dug out and lived my life to the fullest of my potential. And God has called each one of us to do certain aspects in the body and within the church. And so our goal and our focus is to find out in your spiritual growth, what did God call you to do? What did he bring you into the body and to serve? And in doing so, that you might do so with the spirit of humility. There's a scripture, I didn't pull it up. It says, "God gives grace to the humble," and I'm starting to hear this word come up a number of times in my study and in my reading. That God gives grace to the humble. That as God elevates you, as God blesses you, as God prospers you, God strengthens you, God empowers you, that you have to have a spirit of humility about you. From the standpoint, you need to always recognize that, number one, through the depths of what you see other people are, that could have been you, and God may have given you a grace and an empowerment and influence, and flat out he's given you money to help other people who are not in a state, not where you are. You may have come from there, but you have a compassion and empathetic heart that makes you want to reach out and touch. So I pray that as you consider your personal growth and your spiritual growth, that you consider what the Lord desires for you to do. And let's quickly go back through that particular verse. Colossians 1 and 9 says, "For this reason we also, since the day that we heard of it, do not cease to pray for you, that and ask that you may be filled. I ask that you may be filled with the knowledge of his will in all wisdom and spiritual understanding, that you may walk worthy of the Lord, fully pleasing to him, being fruitful in every good work and increasing in the knowledge of God, being strengthened with all might according to his glorious power, for all patience and long suffering with joy, and giving thanks to the Father who has qualified us to be partakers of the inheritance in the saints of light." In the saints of light. In other words, you know where you're going. You know what's going on. You have understanding. You're walking in truth. You are aware. You are aware. And so that's my prayer for you. And I pray that you are blessed by this conversation, and that you are strengthened and encouraged. Be blessed, good people.